Hey everybody, welcome back to the Amateur Sports Podcast. My name is Jacob, and it is Crisis Club Monday, the weekly segment where we talk about the clubs in biggest crisis in world sport for that week. And I know I did them a couple weeks ago, but there can be no other crisis club for this week other than the Toronto Maple Leafs. They have been on a rough stretch, to say the least. Their record against their division, the Atlantic Division, is abysmal, to say the least. I have an episode on that 2 weeks ago. You can go check out where I talked about a lot about the record against the Atlantic, but it's only gotten worse in recent times, losing to the Sabres 5-2 last week. Also you can count, I guess, earlier on the loss to the Canadiens in overtime and the loss to the Panthers. But gonna kind of go more in depth on just the scope of their playoff hopes, which relies heavily on that. But in the last 11 games, they are 4-6-1, including embarrassing losses such as the 5-2 loss to the Sabres I was alluding to, the 5-2 loss to the Penguins, the 5-3 loss to the Rangers, and the 5-3 loss to the Panthers. But to top all of that off, to round off those 11 games, they lost 6-3 to the Carolina Hurricanes. Not just, any regular game against the Hurricanes. They lost to a 42-year-old Zamboni driver who works for them. David Ayers, a 42-year-old Zamboni driver employed by Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. That guy played in net for the Hurricanes for 29 minutes. Wasn't just, quick 15-minute, 10-minute cameo at the end of the third. The emergency goalie played 29 minutes of the game. The Maple Leafs registered 2 goals on him in the second period and none in the third period, where they got battered. They conceded 4 in the second period, and they conceded another 2 in the third period. Unbelievable that they could not score in the third period. Not only, it's already bad enough they lost to an emergency goaltender, but he works for MLSE. And I'm not blaming MLSE for letting him play. That's not what I'm saying, but how embarrassing is that? A 42-year-old Zamboni driver who works for you. And you lost 6-3 in a game that, it's starting to heat up this playoff race. The Panthers are 2 points behind the Leafs right now with a game in hand. The Sabres aren't even out of reach. They're not out of reach. 6 points back. Same with the Canadiens. 6 points back. The Sabres have a game in hand too. They're not out of reach. And if the Leafs can finish top 3, it doesn't look like they will be a wild card team either. So they need to finish top 3. And besides that, even if they do manage to get themselves into a playoff spot, then what? They're going to lose first round. The Lightning are the best team in hockey right now, based on the tear they've been on in the last couple months. They may even catch Boston, and we'd have to play fucking Boston again. We wouldn't win that series. We wouldn't even get to 7 in that series. The Lightning would wipe the floor with us, I think, unless we get the Lightning from last year's playoffs, but unlikely without a concussed Victor Hedman on the ice. So what? We can make the playoffs. Sure, we can squeak in, even if we do. First of all, we need to get there the way we've been playing lately. No heart on the ice. We're not going to win a playoff series, even if we get to the playoffs. Why will it matter? We're just going to embarrass in the playoffs. There needs to be an entire cultural shift among what we're seeing with the Toronto Maple Leafs. No heart, no grit, no desire on that team. Look at the Toronto Raptors. Look at the heart in that organization, in those players. Every time they step out onto the court, they may not be the most talented team player by player, but by God, they're one of the best teams in the NBA the way they play together. And the Leafs, they may have the most talented forward core in the NHL. It's an argument. They have one of the best teams in the NHL. I said they're one of the Stanley Cup favorites at the start of the year. And, a lot of people would have agreed. Look at the assets they have with Nylander playing well above his pay grade. Mitch Marner, John Tavares, Austin Matthews going for the Rocket Richard. How is this team struggling so much? They're second in the NHL in goals this season. What is it about them that's like, is their defense that bad? They're second in the NHL in goals, and they could very well be first by the end of the week. They're only 2 points behind or 1 goal behind the team in first. The Lightning have the most goals, 221, and we have 220. What do we do to recover from here? They've also allowed the second most. Lots of pieces need to be traded. I'm recording before the end of the trade deadline, although there's only 18 minutes to go. Doesn't look like any moves are going to be made. What do we do from here? Even if we make the playoffs, we're going to lose first round. Even if we make the playoffs, we may not even make the playoffs. Lots of work needs to be done by Kyle Dubas. Clearly, this team is not equipped to contend, even though they should be this year. There needs to be action. Something needs to be done with this Toronto Maple Leafs team, because what happened against Carolina, that cannot happen. So work definitely needs to be done. Their record against the Atlantic is abysmal. It's a negative record unless it's against the bottom 3 teams in the Atlantic, being the Senators, Red Wings, and Canadiens. Actually, I think it's even with the Canadiens right now. I'm not sure. And it might be even with the Sabres, to be honest. It's a negative record against the Panthers, the Lightning, and the Bruins, though, if I'm not mistaken. And actually, maybe negative against the Sabres. It could be a negative record against the Sabres now. It's abysmal, to say the least. You can check it out if you want. You can go 2 weeks ago. I highlighted most of it. There's been like a few games in the Atlantic since then. You kind of piece in there. But something needs to be done. Drastic changes need to be made. Kyle Dubas should have been on the phone today, doing more than trading for an AHL defenseman, for Michael Hutchinson, or else this team's gonna fade into obscurity pretty quickly. But that will wrap up this episode. Let me know what you think about the Toronto Maple Leafs. Let me know if there's any other crisis clubs I missed this week. Let me know at AmateurPDC on Twitter and Instagram. You can also do so in the comments on the YouTube video. But we post every single day on this podcast, so make sure you're staying up to date with the daily content by following us on social media, subscribing on YouTube, following us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts at Amateur Sports. And we'll see you again tomorrow for another episode.